What is up guys, Bryzy here and welcome to another episode of Operation PES 2022. And yes, this is Operation PES 2022 today, not Operation PES 2022 Extra. So no news, this will be regarding some ideas I would like to see implemented in the Master League for next year and for years to come. I made a video discussing new teams and managers in this sort of format, so if you're new to the channel, please check those videos out. I'll leave a link in the description down below. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe and leave a like as well if you plan on enjoying this video. Before we dive into the video, this video will have a lot of things I would like change, and by no means this is all meant for PES 2022. This will be for PES 2022 and the future PES games after that. So just a little FYI before I begin this. And like I said, this is going to be a long video. So yeah, let's begin this. This section will discuss the general changes that need to be conducted in PES Master League modes for years to come, like a new menu redesign. I think a menu redesign is needed for the whole game, but for the purpose of this video, we'll be talking about Master League only. It has been very difficult to navigate through menus in PES 2021, and it's been difficult since PES 2018. For example, for the emails you receive, you must leave the inbox after they send you a message in order to complete the action they ask you. Like if the scout recommends a player, you have to go back up to the main menu and go to the scouted players section yourself. A simpler way of doing this is having the emails being clickable, like in FIFA, save you so much more time. The design is also very lackluster. We need to see things like the top goal scorers, top assists, and etc. PES 2016 had the best Master League menu design in a long time. It showed top scorers, top assists, the formation, your team's chemistry, and who qualified for Champions League and who qualified for the Europa League. These factors are more important for Master League than the followers that truthfully have no effect in the game and the partners picture in the bottom right. Personally, I believe they should get rid of the drop-down menus just to use tabs like in FIFA, or have some sort of mix of both, making it easier for us to navigate. I don't understand because my club has tabs, but why not Master League? Next thing we'll discuss is probably something almost every single Master League fan would like to see changed, and that is regens. If you don't know, regens are when retired players come back as 16-year-olds and completely ruin the immersion of the game in Master League. We knew it was okay to do this back in PES 5 and PES 6 because the PS2 had its limitations, and regens was one of the few things that needed to do to save the console's memory. But it's been 3 gaming generations since that feature has been introduced. And like I said, it can ruin the immersion of the game when you play it for more than 3 seasons. Every year, it's the same problem with Master League, and it needs to change when it comes to regens. My solution for this will be having the same regen system we have now, but instead, the player that retired should regen with a new name and a fake face. The overalls for regens should be lowered and more dynamic, exactly like in FIFA. An example of this would be Lionel Messi retiring and he regens as a 16-year-old called M. Lopez or something. However, that would be his regen and not a 16-year-old Messi with a beard and tattoos. Also, the game should be able to generate multiple regens of the same player sometimes, but make them play for different countries and have completely different identities. Meaning that Messi regen can also be a left winger from Nigeria called like F. Musa or something with a similar playing style, making the game more immersive. If they were to do this, I would like for them to add an editor for regens in Master League so we can edit their names, call names, and looks only. Not their overalls, not their stats, but just appearance-wise change stats. So if we don't like the name of the player that they gave us, we can change it in Master League. That would be a very nice touch. Bring back the create a club option from PES 5 and PES 6. It was removed from the PS2 version of the game. It gave the player the ability to create their own clubs with kits, logos, sponsors, and etc. And I know that we can edit unlicensed teams within the edit mode now and make our teams ourselves there, but if you're using an option file, you have to edit the teams that's already been edited for the sake of the option file. So for the sake of my club and even Master League, bring this back and let us edit our own teams. When picking a team, have them show factors like the club team's history, the location, the rivalries, the competition they participate in, and their transfer budget before picking the team. That way, we know exactly what goals we can set for ourselves before we enter. And the last thing I want to talk about is the class level of each team you pick. Class levels are something that they have in the game already if you play online, but basically, class level determine how good a team is worldwide and league-wise. If the team you pick is like a top-tier club like Man City or Liverpool, or a mid-table club like Southampton and Wolves, or a bottom tier like West Brom and Brighton. Class levels can also be implemented in Master League, kind of like how they have it in Online Divisions mode. In Online Divisions, the game differentiates what level each team is, so if you want to play against a team in that level, you could. For example, PSG would be considered a Class A team whilst being the best team in the league, or in the French league. However, Celtic will be considered a Class C team even though they're the best team in Scotland. The class levels would really depend on what leagues you participate in and the rankings of the clubs in the World Club ranking. You can still be a top tier team in Scotland, like Celtic, but be a Class C team. The class levels will be influential to when it comes to the type of players that you'd like to sign for your club. I've actually made a video discussing managers for PES 2022 for my club and Master League, so if you haven't seen it, please check it out. I'll leave a link in the description, but for the sake of this video, I'll be going over the simple stuff. You should be able to have 3 options for manager selection. Option A would be picking a base manager like Gerrard, Lampard, Giggs, Bebeto, and if you guys watching my Schalke save, Roberto Carlos. Option B would be picking a manager that already coaches a side, so team like Hasenhüttl for Southampton, or Mourinho for Spurs, Arteta for Arsenal, Coleman for Barcelona, etc. Or option C, creating your own manager. And that option, I don't understand why they removed it to begin with, so please bring that back. Another thing that I would like to see is CPU managers getting sacked. I remember one time I was playing Master League in PES 2019 and Chelsea got relegated, and Sarri was still their manager even though he got them relegated. The fact that he didn't get sacked is so unrealistic. They need to change that and make sure teams change their manager so they don't decline. The ability to fully customize your manager, this not only includes face appearance but also attire, headgear, mannerisms, and even his or her age. Yes, I said her because you should be able to create female managers. The last thing I want to talk about is when it comes to managers is overalls. Just like players, a manager should have overalls so that it don't only affects how the team performs, but also the types of players you can attract. If you start with a good team like Arsenal or Manchester United and you create a manager, your manager should be like a 70s, high 70s or low 80s. If you start with a weaker team like a Wycombe Wanderers or like Rotherham or something, your overall manager should be like a low mid 60s. Manager overalls should be more dynamic than player developments, as they could easily go up and down, especially depending on age. And oh yeah, one more thing, have some players regen as managers. Not all players, but some of them. Like, I don't want to see Bellerin or Adama Traore. These are people that don't have any footballing IQ, but use their athletic prowess to as an advantage. But people like Iniesta, Fabregas, people like that would be a cool feature. One thing I like to see return is missions. Back in PES 2019, your owner would set missions, and if you didn't fulfill them, your owner's trust level decreased. They should also bring back the manager's trust level. That way, you will know how safe or not safe you are in the hot seats. They definitely need to bring objectives back because this disapproves or improves your relationship with the chairman and may even cost you your job. Like in PES 2013, they should bring in a secretary to tell you things that are going on. Keep the sporting director as well. You should also have the ability to choose staff or interact with them and even upgrade staff. They had this back in PES 2013 for the PS3, where you were able to change doctors, athletic trainers, scouts to best benefit your club. If you guys recently saw my Schalke save, you saw the scout that I had, he was bringing me some trash players like Sane and Mata and people like that. So for example, being able to have a high-class doctor over someone who just graduated from medical school might be really influential when it comes to injuries. Something like a cheap scouts, like I just stated, cheap scouts might not bring the best players, but the easiest players that are available. And then a good scout might bring you better players that might have a chance of signing. Also, have coaches give you like scouting reports prior to a match, like in PES 2013, give you a rundown of how the other team plays and etc. And also have the option to ask for suggestions and tips for post games, so you can improve on that in the future. Bring back sponsorship deals. Back in PES 2013, sponsors will offer money to your club if you reach certain objectives, and they will cancel them if you met the cancellation clause. For example, a sponsor will want your striker to score over 20 goals and then they'll pay you a bonus. And a cancellation clause would be the striker leaving the club. If the striker left, there's no sponsor deal with the player, so it will be a cancellation clause. It was a nice touch because they had different ways of you receiving some sort of income. Have a worldwide news section. Kind of like the bar in the middle showing what is going on with your club. Have one for world news and league news. Maybe show us transfers, other scores, results for big games worldwide, and etc. Back in PES 2016, they had a little news bar that would show us what was going on worldwide with transfers, scores, manager statements, post-match interviews. I feel like they need to blow this up more, with maybe talking about players potentially leaving, managers in the hot seats, fake rumors, retirement announcements, players for the future, Champions League ties, and international tournaments. A lot of times in PES, if an international tournament happened, I wouldn't even know what happened until the game mentions how a certain country is #1 in the national team rankings. If you guys watch my Schalke series, that literally happened, right? England got top rankings in the national team rankings, and I didn't even know that the World Cup happened. Have a social media or like a fake Twitter section that talks about scenarios happening in PES. Typical comments like, I don't think this player is good, or this player is really good, stuff like that. NBA 2K does a really good job with that. In fact, they do a good job in a lot of non-gameplay things. So they should definitely look into that game when it comes to like influence and presentation. Have the CPU properly replace the players that they sell or retire. The teams in PES rarely replace their star players when they leave, and it causes the teams to decline. The older PES games did such a better job with this. I remember playing PES 2015 Master League back in the day, and Crystal Palace sold Zaha to Chelsea, and they replaced him with Matthew Leckie. Now, it may not sound like a proper replacement now, but mind you, it was 2015. Zaha was like an 82 overall, and Matthew Leckie was like an 80 overall. So it was an understandable replacement for Crystal Palace. CPU managers should also be sacked. If a team like Man United are lying in 15th in April, 100% chance they will cite the manager. The teams can either pay a manager's contract or appoint a free agent manager also. Depending on managers overall, it can really affect the team's chemistry, spirits, and the type of signings that the club makes. Teams like Liverpool and Man City are supposed to be rivals, yet they always sell each other goalkeepers. Teams shouldn't buy two of the best goalkeepers in their team. Keep it realistic. Rival teams should also never negotiate with each other. One of the features that PES should add to Master League is being able to inquire about a player's availability. Sometimes PES puts players in transfer lists but aren't actually looking into selling them. For example, you always see like Salah, Mane, and Firmino on the transfer list, but that's their main starters, or Harry Kane in the transfer list, or etc. The club should then tell you their availability if I bid for those players and they don't look into selling them. You should also have the ability to approach to sign option if their contract is about to expire. I think they kind of have that already, but maybe have a tab that says approach to sign, but you know, I think they have that. If you look at the free agency, then you could sign a player. The next thing is the CPU should sometimes offer their own players in the transfer offers. Like for example, a team like Real Madrid might want Holland. Maybe they'll offer like 50 million plus Asensio, things like that to make the transfers more incisive. Multiple teams showing interest in players, like for example, multiple teams simultaneously bidding for players, so then it's out for the player to decide. It happens in real life, and it used to be a thing back in PES 2013. So I don't know why they took that out, so they should definitely bring that back. You should be able to manually negotiate offers with clubs like in FIFA and previous PES titles. Back in PES 2015, if I remember correctly, you're able to bid any amount you wanted manually for the player, as long as you had the money for it. And it was up to the player's choice to decide whether or not he wanted to come to the club. Now we have a little radar determining price ranges, which sometimes can be very annoying because it forces us to pay for the release clause. We shouldn't be forced to pay release fees either. In fact, that needs to change. Not everyone should have release clauses. If you look at the transfers that happened in the past couple summers, besides the Neymar one and the Thomas Partey one, not a lot of them are because of the release fee. Sometimes we just want to bid for the player. Loan prices are too high. They need to be decreased. Bill's loan price for Real Madrid to Tottenham cost 20 million, and this was one of the biggest loan transfer fees ever. But some of the loan prices for the players in the game are too high, especially for the younger players. We should have the option to cancel loans also. The transfers are too unrealistic. Transfers are always very, very unrealistic, and it always happens between big teams, which is not always in the case. Man City and Liverpool always swap players around too much. Ederson always goes to Liverpool, and one of my says Salah actually went to Man City. There are two rival teams. They should not be negotiating with each other. None of that stuff should ever be happening. Also, have players like return to their nation more often when they're about to either end their careers or have not either fulfilled their potential. I remember one time in PES 2013, Chelsea had Kevin De Bruyne on their team, and they decided against renewing his contract, so then he became a free agent, and then he signed with Anderlecht. Another example of that would be like somebody like Dani Alves going to Sao Paulo in the tail end of his career. Things like that makes it realistic. Player values should increase and decrease depending on form, age, and contract package. I had a player that I signed up from Palmeiras. He only cost 500k as a 74-year-old, 19-year-old. He developed and became like an 85 overall, and his value was still the same. Also had a player in Brazil called Igor Jesus, who's an 85 overall and 28 years old. In his peak, one of the best strikers in Europe. He's won countless awards, but was only worth 4 million. Not realistic at all. If any team wanted to sign him, his release fee was right there to pay for. Something that's a little bit more personal for me is making the transfer new bar look more like how it used to look like in PES 13, having the player's face, having the date when the transfer happened, and the prices and everything. It just made it a little bit more organized. So if you wanted to look through an order, then you could. Next thing we'll be talking about is players, and one of the things I want to see is the player info submenu. The player info was something that used to be back in PES 2014. This would be a small submenu showing you information about a player regarding his value, the teams interested in them, and how popular he is nationally. This example was of Tom Cleverly. He showed how popular he was, if he was an international player, and all that other jazz to make it a little bit more interesting. And if the player is a regen, then maybe display who he's a regen of, like in the screen right now. The form system needs to change. If you're someone who plays PES, no matter what mode, the form arrows have always had an effect on how you play, especially in Master League. You can have a striker like João Pedro score a hat-trick and then be on terrible form the following game. They need to have some consistency with that. If the player is on good form, then the form arrow should demonstrate that. There should also be morale, and don't confuse morale with form. Morale is how the player is feeling, form is how the player is doing. If the player is fatigued or keen on the move, he might be on low morale, and that eventually might affect his form. They used to have these things back in PES 2013 on the PS3 and PES 6 back in the PS2. Don't know why they took it out, they should definitely bring that back. If a player is unhappy about lack of playing time, they should hand in a transfer request or a loan request to get more playing time. PES 2013 used to be really good at that, even though it got annoying. Usually, if a bigger club bid for one of your players and you rejected it, there will be a 60 or 70% chance that the player will come into your office the next day and hand in a transfer request, causing his form to be on poor for the majority of the season until he left. That may sound annoying now, but it's the reality of how football is these days, and sometimes the players even change their minds and decide to stay. You should also be able to see satisfaction levels of players outside of your club. Back in 2015, it was pretty obvious that Raheem Sterling wanted to leave, so maybe have a little bar showing us how unhappy or how happy he is at the current club, making the negotiations easier or harder for you. There needs to be more injuries for players, not only for your own players, but other players in the game. Maybe the scout could do his job properly and tell me injury reports to teams that I'm about to play of. Like, for example, if I'm playing like Wolves, they could tell me that Raul Jimenez is injured, so he won't be playing. And maybe your doctors can tell you when your players get injured and where the injury is, or when it happened, like the training match, if it happened during training, if it happened during a match. Have some more variety in the injuries also, like calf injuries, groin injuries, stuff like that. So I feel like the injury names are very basic in this game. They need to like advance themselves in that. Bring back player dynamic potential. There are a lot of players in today's world that peak early, like, you know, your Owens and your Adrianos, or players that are late bloomers like Vardy or Drogba who develop late in their careers. They should bring that feature back and maybe have players over the age of 25 actually develop to becoming better players. Also have a thing that's to show us the player history, like what team he played for prior to signing for the club. They had that in PES 2013, don't know why they took that out. Please bring it back. Like in FIFA, PES should have press conference questions that actually affect the player and team morale. Press conference questions are cool right now, but have no effect on the game at all. This is just a little gimmick showing you the graphical capabilities of the Fox engine at this point. So they need to change that and have more varieties in the question also. They ask the same question all the time too. I would like them to have more different questions ready to ask you depending on which scenario you're facing. Press conference questions should also talk about transfer rumors, form, concerns, and managerial hot seats to make it as realistic as possible. Next we'll be talking about awards and statistics. It is always interesting when PES says who has qualified for the team of the season, but they never mention everyone. There should be a tab that shows us all the players that are nominated. They should also have a team of the season. That would be really cool also. We have a lot of stats for strikers, midfielders, but not enough for goalkeepers and defenders. Like, have more stats for goalkeepers, like clean sheets, number of saves, and for defenders, things such as clearances, interceptions, and balls headed cleared. Stuff like that to make it more realistic. I would like to add an award show. I did post something on Reddit saying, remember when PES had award shows, and it got like almost 400 upvotes. They had this in PES Manager back for the PS2, where they will show the awards for the top scorer, top assist, the best defenders, best manager, and things like that. And maybe if you as a manager or one of your players were nominated, then you could watch it live. There should also be a social status bar showing us the improvements of the coach overall, thus making you more attainable for bigger clubs if you plan on moving, or making your job more safe because you have experience as a manager. There have been a lot of hints that they might change the youth system next year. If they plan on revamping the youth system in Master League, they should have an actual youth team. Depending on what country you start in, have most of your youth players be from that country or region. For example, if you play Manchester United, have most of your players be from England or Britain, make it more realistic. You should be able to sign players for the youth team also. If I see a 17-year-old regen that I will be keen on using in the future, but not now, I should be able to sign him on a youth contract and leave him on the youth team. And then the player has the choice to sign a professional contract with the club or leave on a free once he reaches 20 years old. Now that shouldn't stop you from the option of promoting that youth player before 20, but it makes it more realistic. And lastly, have a way to watch your youth team in action. Maybe being able to hire a youth team manager, maybe have a scout or assistant tell you how the youth team is performing, and if the youth team is performing well, have the players become higher in overall. So simple things like that. The Supercopa de España has adopted a new 14 format, and it plays in the middle of the season. The current format is outdated and needs to be changed for next year's game. Please add an unlicensed version of the Copa Sudamericana. We have an European version with the European Masters Cup, which is the Europa League, but just add one for South America as well. We want to see some more South American teams participating in these competitions. They should also add youth tournaments, like a U23 World Cup, so we can see the best young players around. If you don't remember, this is how I found out about players like Holland, who scored 9 goals against Honduras. So it's a fairly prevalent thing when it comes to football. All the other European teams, or the other European team section of the game, should be able to participate in qualifying rounds for the Champions League and the Europa League. A lot of these teams are originally unlicensed, and because of that, they don't participate in any European competitions. Teams like RB Salzburg and Dundalk are edited in the game, but are not involved in the Master League at all. They play no games whatsoever and are never involved in any sort of European competition. And lastly, put every nation of Europe in Master League so they can participate for the Euro qualification, not just a set of teams. Teams like Gibraltar and Malta are not in Master League but are in the game, so if they keep the license for the UEFA Euro teams, they should add those nations to the Master League also. The text in the game of a lot of teams don't make any sense, mainly with grammar and wording that needs to be changed. It's really bad, and they need to change that next year. There needs to be more involvement in the team roles they give us, like there are no rising stars in the game at all. A lot of these team roles are just not used in the game whatsoever, and it really has no impact on what happens. There should be a feature that shows us what part of the team the player is, kind of like in FIFA where the team with the first team sporadic, crucial, or rotational type player. If not, I can sign the best players possible. None of them will complain about lack of playing time because they have no sort of guarantee of how they're going to be implemented into the team. And there should also be a team status bar like in PES 2018 showing us the manager's trust level, your key players, and etc. Alright, so the last one we're going to talk about is training. And training is something that's been kind of like brushed under the carpet for PES in recent years. It's been very, very below par, and it needs to change that for the upcoming games. There should be some sort of training drills type of system like they have in FIFA that can help improve the players. In PES 2013, there was training equipment you can give your players to improve certain stats. For example, you could give the player a treadmill to increase their speed, or give them weights to increase their strength. Little things like that made the game feel more like an RPG game, which is always a positive. And they should also implement special training cards like in My Club. So if you guys don't play My Club, they give you like special training cards to help improve stats or help them play different positions, learn new skills, and overall become better players. This will be so much better than what we have right now. And lastly, have a free training session like they had back in PES for the PS2 and the PS3 and even PES on the PS1, just so you could play around with your team, see how they feel before you actually play a match. It gives the opportunity to train new players and to try certain players in certain positions. And lastly, this is just a miscellaneous section where I couldn't figure out where to put these sort of comments in the actual script, so this would be just a bunch of random things. So one of the first things I want to see changed is the commentary in Master League. It can be very, very lackluster. Have it be more in depth where they can discuss transfers, random stats, new managers, new players, playing styles, and etc. In My Club, the commentators are always talking about how players played, the playing styles of teams, but we never hear the same from Master League. So have some sort of like immersion with that. Player communication, have a menu where you're allowed to talk to players. Like in FIFA, you can discuss playing time, locker room issues, and how some players want to be captain or want a number or whatever, or if they want to play a certain position. They had this back in PES 2012, if I don't remember correctly, and it was a really cool feature that they had. They should have a league stats section and world stats section. They had this back in PES 6, shows the best dribblers, top scorers, top assists, chance creator all around the world. Have a diary type of, I guess, feature. PES 2012 had this where after every game they would have a screenshot of the match and you had text box where you can write things in it. It was something small, but I never brought it back. But I did think it was a cool feature back then, so they should bring it back. Maybe in that diary, they could have previous champions from all around also. Maybe have your other best scenarios, biggest transfers that happened during that season. I think it will be a very, very cool feature. Team talks before games, like in real life, they have that in Football Manager. They should add this to PES. Maybe having motivational team talks can either increase or decrease the form errors before a match, and the manager's trust level affects team talks also. So if your manager's trust level is really, really low, your players might not have the respect for you, and your team talks might not have any effect, or vice versa. Show us match scores of other league games while our games are going on, or show us scores during halftime. If you guys watched my Schalke Master League series, you know that I wanted to see how Dortmund was doing against Freiburg in the last game of the season, to see if we qualify for Champions League or not. I wish I knew like during the game, but they don't show us that. They should definitely bring that back. They had this in PES 2013. They should definitely take a leaf from FIFA's book and show us the scores for other games while our game is still going on. They should have big transfer presentations if you're a big team or when you're signing a big player. So when we signed Neymar, when Barcelona signed Neymar back in 2013, they had a big presentation, and they had this back in PES 2013, but they took it out for some reason. Now we have like the press conference meeting and like a training ground show or small things like that, but you should definitely bring that back. And lastly, have ticket sales. I seen this feature back in FIFA 07 where they have ticket sales. Depending on how big the game was, the ticket sales would be high, or like the ticket prices would be high, meaning you're bringing more revenue to the club. Or if the game was like a League Cup game, the ticket sales will be low, or the ticket revenue will be low because League Cup games are usually cheaper. Things like that. It makes it a little bit more immersive than what we have right now. So yeah, they should definitely bring that back. In conclusion, most of the features that I've talked about in this video have either featured in previous PES games or other football games. I do feel like PES sometimes is really outdated with some of its features, and I do think that this mode needs a complete overhaul. Like I said before, these are features I would like to see in the future of PES, not just PES 2022. The only reason why PES 2022 is on the title is because that is the next game coming out. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, hit the like button and subscribe. Also, let me know in the comments what sort of features would you like to see be added into Master League for PES 2022. Let me know in the comments down below. I also have a video for this format under development for edit mode, so stay tuned to that. And like I said before, leave a like if you want to see that. And I might do a part 2 for this video. Just let me know in the comments down below what you want to see from Master League. Just drop it in the comments. And yeah, that's it. Love you guys. See you on the next one. Peace.